Hello! Welcome to week 2. Okay, so everybody should have gotten through week 1. If you didn't and you haven't attempted anything, more than likely you're going to be dropped for non attendance. If you guys aren't getting in there and working on your stuff weekly and making sure that you're turning your stuff in because it is an online class, that's how we're gauging attendance. Again, I'm not taking attendance every day in 0 hour. It will just look like you're there. It'll be, like any other dual credit class that you're taking online where your attendance really isn't entered. But make sure that you're getting in there. So last week, you should have gotten into the Canvas platform. You can see on my screen here. You should have completed the introducing yourself, and you should have completed the getting started quiz. It has the same questions on it. So I know it isn't telling you what you're missing, but you at least know the questions the second time. And so you're able to take it once and then go back and find all of the answers if you want to, and then take it the second time. So really, the questions aren't changing, much like the other tests that you're going to have in here. You should have also gotten signed up with MindTap and gotten your online book. You're going to access that. Chapter 1 Introduction. You are expected to read the entire chapter before you're doing any of the work. Again, this is a 3 credit class, and so it's expected that you're going to work on it 9 to 12 hours a week. It isn't one that you're going to be able to just listen to me talk for a few minutes and then be able to tackle everything and pass the class. I will go over the PowerPoint. That's what I'm going to go over. There's flashcards in here that you can utilize. These are recommended resources for you. Memorization strategies, definitely read that. That's going to help. So you should have read the chapter. You should have gotten through these 4 apply it's. You should have taken the pronouns quiz. You should have taken the regular quiz. You should have completed this lockdown browser. I did put another one in here. I don't know where it went, but there's another one that I put in there just so you could try it at home again. And then you should have completed the chapter 1 exam. Again, any of the assignments that you don't turn in on time, so that would be by Sunday, August 31st by midnight, will be late. And there's a 10% penalty for that. You're only able to turn it in up to a week late, and then it's just not accepted, and then it just goes away and you get a 0 on it. Okay, so chapter 2, the human body in health and disease. Again, I'm going to be breaking these up so that it isn't me sitting here recording myself for 90 minutes. So I'm going to break it up into like 10, 15-minute sections. I will be going over the chapter 2 PowerPoint. So, what do we have to do for this week? So, you need to read chapter 2. It's the human body in health and disease. For you guys, this should really be review for most of you. There is a discussion post for this week. You do need to post your initial post by Wednesday. Then you need to follow up with one of your classmates and respond by Sunday. Okay, so even though it says it's due September 7th, you need to, or whatever this date is here, you need to make that initial response by Wednesday so that there's enough time for people to get in and respond to you. There are only 2 apply it's this week. There's a pronouns quiz, a chapter quiz, and then the chapter 2 exam. So without further ado, let's get into the chapter 2 PowerPoint. You can download these. Now, whenever you're taking your test, it is closed book. The only thing that you're able to have open is Canvas, just that test, just that chapter 1, 2, 3, whatever test. Oops. Okay, so let's do this then. Let's exit. Let me do this because I do have them saved on my computer. Chapter 2. Let me see. Okay. So, chapter 2. Let me slideshow. And with this, I'm just going to be going over some of the material, some of the little tricks I use that may be beneficial to you. And again, I'll probably talk for about 10 more minutes, and then I'll cut it off, and we'll have like several parts that you can watch through the beginning of this week. So let me set my timer. And so I'm not just talking nonstop. Okay, so at the end of this chapter, you should be able to define what anatomy and physiology is. You should be able to look at a word and recognize it, spell it, define it, pronounce it. The primary terms related to cells and genetics, as well as structure, function, pathology, and procedures. You should be able to identify the major organ functions, and you should be able to recognize and state the primary terms used in pathology. So, for anatomical reference systems, anatomical reference systems, we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at body planes, directions, cavities, and then the structural units. We went over this in, I believe, level 1 and level 2. So hopefully for most of you that you're just like, oh yeah, I remember there's this many planes, and this is what superior and inferior are, and this will be review, like I said, for most of you. So anatomical refers to the anatomy. So whenever we look at an A&P class, anatomy is the structure. Anatomy is where you're going to memorize everything. Physiology is how does it work in the body. I almost think that sometimes we teach A&P backwards to me, because once I know what it does, it's easier for me to remember what it is. So like anatomy and physiology 1 and 2 that most of you will have to take going into any kind of health science. The first one was just all memorization, and I was like, oh. The second one, where we actually learned the physiology, it made the first class make sense. Anatomical position, of course, is with the body standing in an upright position so that the front is facing you. The arms are held at the sides and the palms face towards the front. So again, we're in a supine position with that. And how do we carry soup? With our hand. Okay, I need to put a little video of myself up doing this. I don't know if there's a way I can do that. Maybe for next week. So we have vertical and horizontal planes that divide the body. Vertical planes, so those are going to go up and down. So we have sagittal, that divides the body into left and right. We have mid-sagittal, that's another name for midline. It is the sagittal plane, again, left and right. And then we have frontal. Now frontal is also called coronal, and that divides the body into front and back. And so with the sagittal and the mid-sagittal, it's going to split the person into right down the middle, left and right. And for the frontal, I always think frontal plane divides the front and the back. Horizontal plane, we only have one, and it's transverse. And again, when we say trans, we're going across something like a transcontinental flight. Transverse is just going to simply cut that person side to side. It's going to go across that person. And so that is going to divide the body into superior and inferior. There is a picture, okay? So you'll see my mouse here. We have the mid-sagittal, which is going to divide right and left. It's this blue line right here. The yellow line is the frontal plane, and it divides front and back. And then we have the transverse plane, and that is going to cut the body top and bottom. So then we have superior and inferior. So we have certain locations within the body, or certain sections. The first one is going to be ventral or dorsal. Okay, ventral and dorsal, I should say. I always remember dorsal because of a dorsal fin. Dorsal fin is on the back of the body, and so ventral is on the front. Cephalic and caudal. Cephalic means towards the head. Caudal is towards the lower part of the body. And that one, I just remember cephalic goes towards your head, you know. Encephalitis. Encephalitis is inflammation in the brain, so towards the head. Anterior and posterior. Anterior is to the front, posterior is to the back. The only way I remember this is I always say, oh, your posterior is behind you, like your posterior is your backside. Okay. And if you want to remember it, ant, A comes before P, A comes in the front, and posterior comes in the back. Again, cephalic towards the head, caudal towards the feet. Posterior is going to be towards the back or dorsal. Anterior or ventral is going to be towards the front. Then we get into even more anatomical terms. So superior and inferior, think superior is always to the top. If somebody or something is superior, boom, it rises to the top. Inferior, they're kind of hanging out in the bottom. Proximal and distal. So I always remember this. Distal means distant. Okay. Distal is going to be situated furthest from midline, and proximal means it's close to. Medial and lateral. Medial, I think the middle. Okay. Lateral on the side of the body. So if it's lateral, those of you in sports, there are some moves that are a lateral move. It's going to be towards the side of the body or away from midline. So those are key terms that you need to know. And here's a picture. So it kind of depends on what we're talking about in relation if something is distal or proximal. So you can have the humerus, okay, and you have the proximal end of the humerus. That means it's more to the midline, and the distal is more towards the outer layers, okay? When we're talking about body parts, so the humerus is distal to the sternum, okay? More away from the body. But the humerus is proximal to the wrist because it's more to the midline. So it kind of depends on what you're talking about. Look in relation to what that body part is. Okay. The lateral ligaments of the knee are on the outside, right here. Medial is going to be inside. So most people are familiar with your ACL, okay? Your anterior cruciate ligament. That's it. Anterior, it's on the front part of your knee. It goes whoop, whoop, right there. Your lateral ligament is on the outside, and your MCL, your medial cruciate ligament, is on the inside. Major body cavities, again, we have the dorsal and the ventral. Dorsal is the back, ventral is the front. The dorsal cavity on the back, the only thing really in that area is the nervous system. It's the spine and the brain, pretty much. We have the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity for the dorsal, okay? The ventral is everything else. All of the organs that are not the spine are in that ventral area, okay? Ventral, located on the front of the body, it contains the organs that sustain homeostasis. We divide that area again. So we have the thoracic or the chest cavity or the thorax, okay? So with thorax, I always think of the lungs. I always think of the rib cage, okay? So that's going to be the chest cavity. The diaphragm is that muscle that separates the thoracic and the abdominal cavities. And then we have the abdominal cavities. That's where you're going to have, that's your organs of digestion. For example, your small intestine, large intestine, bowels, gut, any name that you can think of, that's in your abdominal cavity. Then we go a little bit further down and we have the pelvic cavity. So that's the space between the hip bones. And that contains all the organs of the reproductive and the excretory systems. The abdominopelvic cavity is pretty much those two cavities combined, the abdominal and the pelvic cavity as a single unit. Inguinal refers to the lower area of the abdomen, so another word for the groin. And there's a picture of it. So we see the cranial, we see the spinal cavity. This is all the dorsal. The only thing that's in it is the brain and the spine. And then when we get into the ventral, this is all the ventral, okay? We have the thoracic cavity, which is essentially like the lung area. Heart is in the thoracic area. We have the diaphragm that separates the thoracic and the abdominal. We have the abdominal, which is going to be all of your organs for digestion, as far as like your intestines. And then we have the pelvic cavity, which is going to be between the hip bones. The abdominopelvic cavity is this whole section here. Okay. So major cavities, we can divide it into 9. Some of them are easier than others, and I'm going to stop there, and I will start the next one on anatomical references systems. Escape. QuickTime player. How do I turn this off?